Welcome to another episode of Worst Collection Ever, where we talk about, I don't know how Jen does this, but you know how it goes. We have the worst comic book collection, and it belongs to us. I'm Shawn, and I have a special guest co-host this week.
What's up, guys? It's Brian here.
Brian, my brother, who is here in town, great state of Colorado, hanging out with us. We're just visiting. Just so I am telling you guys, Jen's fine. She's just not doing the show today. We had a long day today. She needs her rest.
Trying to jam pack a whole bunch of things into like 4 days is kind of a lot, you know. Well,
the problem, like sometimes too, is like, well, first of all, so Brian's in town with my mother, and they're staying with us, and the schedule of just trying to fit things in and do things, you know, like this is like the first full day that you've been here, and we went up to Estes Park, which is like a 90-minute drive through the mountain, you know, through a mountain and up there, and you know you're up there, and so that was cool. You know, we went up there nice and, you know, as early as we could.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and then we come all the way back, you know, and we're hitting some traffic, and we're just in a car all day. So there's just a lot.
The drive back, it was like 2-hour ride back. I was just like, all right, this is kind of a little rough.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's usually how it would be, like in L.A. and stuff like that. Like, you know, you go out to, you know, do stuff with, you know, in L.A. and you're sitting there and you're stuck in the car, and by the time you actually get to where you want to go, you don't really want to do anything else, and it kind of just wipes you out for the day. You know, by the time we were like, okay, let's go ahead and do this, because we're all going to tape together, and Jen was like out like a light. So I was like, well, you know, she's like, go ahead, you guys tape. We'll do something different. And, you know, I just want to make sure we try to get something out, because, I mean, maybe you can answer this. Like, we try to release on Thursdays, I think, because as a professional podcast person, I'm always like, oh, well, you should release on a separate day or a specific day, so that way people are, you know, following along and making sure that they're setting their schedules to it. We haven't been that good with that in the past couple months. It's been, you know, it's rough because, you know, just to get, as you probably know, getting everybody together to do a show.
Oh yeah, no, for my show, WhatTheHops, which is a craft beer centered podcast, I always would try to do a show a week on a specific day. Like originally, I think we started off on Wednesdays, and we started dropping on Mondays, and trying to get everybody together on a specific day to just record so I can get it out on that day.
Yeah, just
never happened. I mean,
wait, you're wearing a shirt of your podcast?
Yeah.
Did you make that yourself?
Yeah, no, I did a couple of test shirts, like for me and the guys and their significant others and stuff.
Can I get one?
I mean, I can, you know,
in the next batch.
Yeah,
because I need more podcast shirts.
I did actually create a Threadless store that I haven't actually like put up anywhere.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, everybody has a Threadless store for everything, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't really know how like any of these are going to come out. Like this, I did with Custom Ink actually.
Oh, okay.
So just to kind of test it out, and I don't know. The shirts actually came out pretty nice, so I would probably end up using that again at some point, but I don't know.
No, I've always thought about doing merch for this show.
It's just one of those things where it's like, is the demand really there?
I don't know.
Putting the effort into it? Like,
I don't know. That's a good question.
I've had a couple of people be like, yeah, oh, I'd buy a shirt. And I'd be like, yeah, would you though? If I walked up to you and said, hey, I got your shirt, you'd be like, oh, shit. Never mind.
Give me $20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I mean, if you are, for the folks that do listen to this podcast, you know, and we don't normally post these kind of questions on like Facebook and stuff like that. We're more about just posting, you know, comic book shit and stuff that's fun. But, you know, if you would get merch, I know there's some of you out there that would definitely do it. But if you, for the lot of you that listen to the show, the majority of you folks that are listening to the show every week and dedicating your time to us, would you buy a shirt from us? Let us know. worstcollectionever@gmail.com, or should hit us up on Facebook. I'd be curious to find that out. But Yeah.
Well, one thing I'm surprised you guys didn't do is like have like any kind of like stickers or something made yet. I mean, you could, or even like some kind of cards where you can like throw at comic book stores for the amount of stores.
We had
and
the
stuff.
card. We had cards, and we sometimes I have some left, but they still have like the Sideshow logo on them. They don't really have like
Any information.
I mean, they do and they don't. I mean, it's just one of those things where we just. I mean, it's kind of like we were talking about yesterday because you went to that brewery, and you were like, well, people get weird if you want to give them stickers. Or something.
I still tagged that wall.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah.
I put a sticker up on that wall,
which I think is probably the purpose of that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, you just want to leave some stuff there, and it's like I don't know. I mean, it's
well. I mean, you could easily. I mean, stickers are a thing where you can be like, hey, we do this podcast, and you give to the people working there, and you kind of like hand them out. Or I know people like. Fans of things do like them. You could, I'm sure people would be interested in like, a sticker or something like that.
I think, well, the thing about stickers, which I think is good about stickers, is that they serve a purpose.
Yeah.
You can actually put it somewhere. Like if you have a business card, like I can't tell you how many business cards I have from shows that I'm just like, oh, I still have this,
Well, if it's for the podcast though, you can throw an information card, like especially in a comic book store or something like that.
Yeah.
Who's saying you can't just drop a random card in like on top of a box somewhere, and just walk away from it.
Yeah. I don't want to catch heat.
So then the next random dude that's gonna start shuffling through and it's gonna be like, oh, what is this? Is gonna pick it up and probably just throw it aside.
I'll tell you what,
they're gonna look at it, and I mean, you're getting some eyes on that. I guess I don't know. It's marketing in a sense.
I'll tell you what. When we go to Mile High, I'm just gonna litter the store with some cards that I have left over. Just throw them in some dollar boxes.
Yeah, you go back to the days.
Piss off the Titans.
Go back to the days of. Go back to the days of, people flying for shows and stuff and standing outside and just like throwing things at you. And you're like, I don't want any of this.
Yeah. I don't know. Hey, well, I mean, I always will take a flyer. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll do some stickers. I think we need to change our logo. I think we've had the same logo. We've had the same logo since the beginning of the show. And it was done for free because it was done when I was at Sideshow. We were at Sideshow.
Yeah.
And basically, they set I had our guy be like, "Hey, take this blurry picture of a pile of comic books, and like put the worst collection of just put like a very simple logo on it, and that's our thing." And it just kind of, the more that I look at it, just kind of looks like barf. At times it's been a while. So
sometimes when you're looking at it, you're not sure quite what it is at first, and you have to actually like focus on it to like figure it out.
I don't know what it would be though, because I don't particularly like pictures, like doing my picture on a show. Like on a thing, I'm not really a big fan of that, unless if like you're a big celebrity that's actually going to matter. If you have some sort of art or whatever. I mean, at least your thing, you just have. Well, also, like, the other thing, too, is, like, the worst collection ever. Like, I feel like it's weird. It's kind of cumbersome to put on something. I don't know. I think a lot about this.
Without having something that actually shows that it's comic books, too, though, that's the thing. So you'd have to show that there's comic books involved in the logo somehow. And then, the words, it's not necessarily anything that's bad.
Well, maybe it's something where you put, and I'm just spitballing here, and we're doing this on the show and give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's, putting it like as a border, because you could fit those things along the border. But I mean, that again, you want to make sure people actually read what the hell it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I got to think about it. Maybe we'll have to figure that out because we could definitely use a refresher. But
have someone draw a shitty version of the critic and just have him pointing at the screen. It says worst collection ever.
Yeah. I don't want to do anything copyrighted.
I know.
I'm the poorest man in podcasting. I can't afford it. So, but yeah. So we're. I guess we'll have to consider that. But I guess I want to ask you before we get into our book. What do you think of Colorado so far?
I mean, this is my first time here. It's like it's like when I first went to LA for the first time to visit you guys when you guys were out there.
Yeah.
And it's a little overwhelming and you're trying to find your ground on where exactly you are location wise.
Yeah.
Because like you live south of the city.
Yeah.
And, you know, we just went north of the city, and then there's a bunch of places where it's like, okay, well, tomorrow we're going to be going north, but not as north, and we're not really hitting the mountains, but we're kind of in the mountains. And the whole mountain thing is a whole new aspect of, you know.
Well, the thing too is like this city itself. I mean, that where we are right now is elevated already. Like we're not even in a mountain, but we're elevated, you know, and so that's in itself is very
it's different from what we're used to growing up on the East Coast, you know.
Well, like, yeah, I mean, basically, yeah. Like, I mean, you know, lived in Buffalo, went to Boston, and then moved to L.A.
And it's like we got mountains out there, you know. Like I was talking to some people earlier, and we were kind of discussing. It's like, oh well, do you guys have mountains out in Buffalo? And it's like, technically, no. Like we have maybe about like a couple hours south of us. You have like kind of like the foothills of the Appalachians a little bit.
I guess, yeah.
But like then you can go to like
that's like more in like Pennsylvania though, isn't it?
And that's what I mean. Like it's still a couple hours south.
Yeah.
But then you can go like 5-6 hours east, and like you're in the Adirondacks,
right?
And that's a thing. But then like you can also go, you know, 5-6 hours east and a little south of that, and you're in like the Catskills and Poconos and all that stuff. And that's like what people in New York City and stuff look at as their mountains.
Right.
And those mountains aren't these mountains, you know.
No.
Even the Adirondacks don't really compare to the Rockies necessarily.
Yeah.
Like you have a couple of tall peaks, but other than that, like, I mean, this is completely different.
No, this is the real deal.
But it's cool though.
Yeah.
It's something. No, Denver seems to be a pretty cool city. Driving through when we were heading up to where we were today and stuff, kind of seeing the outskirts of the city and from the thruway and everything else was, you know, a little more eye-opening and kind of gives an idea, because out in Buffalo we're still not quite anything like this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've discussed it with you time and time again, mm-hmm. But it's just, it's something that it feels good to be in an area like this.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to experience it.
Yeah, no, that's usually how it is for me too. If I can hit somewhere up that I haven't been, you know, and just kind of see like, you know, just kind of see what the landscape is, you know. But that's how I kind of felt moving out here. But, you know, the thing that I realized quick is that, you know, there's a lot of people out here like us who are just, you know, creative types that are into just cool, just, you know, just into random, you know, into shit like, you know, comic books and wrestling and beer and all that stuff. And there's a lot of people out here that are into that stuff too. And I didn't feel as,
and there's also a lot of transplants here too.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel as out of place as I would have maybe being in like, you know, like say if I was, I'm just using an example like Philadelphia, mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't know really where to go heads up, and I would feel like it's not, be more like going to Boston too, like because when I lived in Boston, like I didn't realize too much later that I was into a lot, you know, I was embracing a lot of shit, you know, that I mm-hmm. used to. But granted, I was going to school then, so I had more things to worry about at that time. But you know, being in a place like LA, it's like that's just all there is. It's just nothing but culture, pop culture, you know. And you got burgeoning scenes and where all this stuff happens and stuff, and you're just, you know, you're into it. But you know, you come out here and it, you know, there's pockets of that, and there's people that, you know, make their ways to make a point to have that be a part of this culture, you know. So I'm not going to say that and I say culture, I'm talking like comic books and wrestling, stuff that's like, you know, relevant to us, you know, at least definitely to the people that listen to the show or whatever, you know. But I have a lot of, I feel good about it, you know, and I've kind of had a chance to take it in and, you know, kind of get the lay of the land, and, you know, especially with the podcasting thing too, like there's people out here that are ambitious to do podcast stuff. I think they're a little bit more on the high concept side of things, whereas, you know, the podcasting that, and I think I've talked about this a lot on the show, but it's like, you know, I work for a place like Podcast One where I do nothing but shows that are very much like, hey, here's this person, let's do a show around them. Whereas a lot of times, you know, a lot of the people around here are very much into like, oh, well, we're creating a show around a concept or like an issue or something like that. And it's not, that doesn't always interest me as much. I know that's what it's more of these days because
there's definitely people out there looking for that stuff though.
Oh yeah, there's definitely like celebrity and comedian driven podcasts that people will still flock to, and you know, because it's a familiar thing, and that's really, you know, the easiest way for somebody to get into podcasting is like, oh, so and so does a show, I'll listen to it. Oh, I like that, maybe I'll listen to something else. But
like one of the easier things that people do when they start, I feel like one of the things that people do when they start podcasts is they look at what's popular, and a lot of people jump into like true crime, being like, I'm going to.
Well, that's the rage
crime.
now.
Yeah, like it's like nowadays, it's like there's everybody. It's all they want. Like if you look on Twitter, people are like, "Oh, show me some who has suggestions for a podcast. I like to listen to true crime," and it's like you see like 50 people replying, "Listen to my podcast. Listen to this. Listen to that," and it's like, what sets you apart? Why are you a better true crime podcast than the rest?
Well, we're getting to that point where now that's the thing, because it's kind of like how it was, 5 years ago, later, 5-7 years ago, where like, you had the Marins and the Hardwicks and all those shows popping up, and then everybody else started doing these shows, and it was like, well, what makes you different than the other comedian that's doing this next show?
Mm-hmm.
What's the big deal that you're bringing to the table? Because there's already a guy that does this really good, and I should just listen to that, and I don't, unless if I really like you as a person, I'm not going to dedicate myself to that. Unless if you're doing something different, like a different concept. Like I think I was telling you about the All Fantasy Everything show.
Yeah.
Which I've come to like the hosts more, even though I was initially more bought into the concept.
Yeah.
And that kind of came with that time. But normally, though, I mean, if you got, usually for especially for like comedians and celebrities, like you have to be like somebody that is going to command their attention and command their time. And, and that's kind of what happened, like when everybody started doing these shows and everybody thought that, they could, like, Sideshow was nothing but that. Mm-hmm. It was nothing but a bunch of people being like, yeah, I could do a show. And then they do a show and they're like, oh, wait, nobody gives a shit about me.
Well, that's why, like, the show, like, I mean, when you had your hands in Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, like, I mean, that wasn't just him just saying random shit.
No.
That was him taking, a concept and bringing in these people that you wouldn't think to have
on a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And doing episodes with those kind of people.
And it's and the thing about Gilbert's show is it's, mostly due to, his co-host Frank and his wife Dara, they manage a lot of stuff behind the scenes, to help bring everything together for when they tape with, when Gilbert's there and, Gilbert's they're doing the show, and it makes a lot of sense to for them to do that and create something that's bigger than just Gilbert Gottfried being like, because Gilbert, that Gilbert likes what he likes, and his act. I mean, it's the thing too. Well, think about something like Gilbert too. It's like, I don't think this is not really saying anything bad about it. It's just he has an act, and he probably does the same act for years.
He's coming to Buffalo like next month, or maybe at the end of this month or something like that. And I'm like, I guarantee you, it's probably the same shit that he did like 2 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago when we happened to like see him.
Yeah, and it's probably maybe he cycles out something different, but I don't think he really like he has his act and he doesn't like he has a bit where he, he talks about he puts tape on his face, he pretends he's Hulk Hogan or whatever the hell it was. I mean, I remember that at least. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to drag on him, but the thing when it comes to the show though, like his show is very unique and it brings a lot into the podcast. And Gilbert's got a very like he's much like myself, where I just remember bullshit about wrestling and other new metal bands and whatever the hell it is that I'm remembering at the moment. Gilbert knows that about classic television and movies, and he's he's got Frank there to help him out, and that makes that show unique. But then, but it could have also been just Gilbert being like, I'm going to talk about life, or I'm going to talk about comedy or whatever, and it probably wouldn't have gone over as well.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, it's the thing about out here, though, is that a lot of people, like, they don't, the people that I'm trying to endear myself with, or at least because that's mostly the scene. I'm trying to endear myself. I'm trying to like figure out a way to like be more active. And it's been a couple months that I've kind of taken some time off of it. But the groups out here are more like, it's like, okay, let's talk about politics. Let's talk about, this horrible story that needs to be enlightened, and let's discuss that. And, they don't really like, I think the interviewing thing that, everybody else does or whatever it is that they think the other podcasts do doesn't apply to them. And it's weird. And it's difficult because, coming from a place like LA where that's nothing but those people, for the majority of it. I mean, granted, there's a lot of high concept shit flying around out there too, but everything
gets overshadowed by the people with clout throwing their names out in the podcast world.
Well, that and also too, but now it's also a matter of like, obviously the true crime genre and like the true stories and just the highly produced stuff that people take a lot of time to dedicate to. Because I'll say this, like places like Sideshow and Podcast One, when it's time to do a podcast, the gestation period was always like, we're doing okay. So and so is going to do a podcast, and they're going to start this podcast like next week. Or they're going to do it like right away because they're just like, okay, we're going to bring this person and we're going to talk, and, maybe at Sideshow we would pilot it, but like a lot of times it just was like, oh, you're doing a show. Great. Maybe you'll make some money, but then you got places like Wondery and like these other podcast production places that like actually pilot it, actually like do focus groups within their company and have people listen to it and discuss it. It's not to say we didn't do that stuff at Sideshow, but there's a lot of work a lot more time that goes into before they actually even put up a trailer for it. We would just be like, okay, this episode done, great, because so and so wants it up. We have to produce something. We have to get this market out there into the market so we could sell some ads on it. If that was what we were doing with it, but yeah, it's a weird business. I don't like it. I wish I could not do it sometimes. Sometimes I'm just like, fuck, man, podcasting, man, what the hell is it?
Yeah, but it in the end, though, it's fun. I mean,
it's super fun.
Especially because the one thing, too, is you get some people that take it way too seriously. And, I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this show or if you happen to listen to my show at all, serious isn't really anything that's involved. Like, yeah, it's not like we're just putting out garbage, but, I mean, at the same time, it's like...
Some episodes are garbage.
Yeah.
But for me, I take it seriously because, I mean, and again, it's some of those things where I feel bad about myself.
Well,
where I don't keep a set schedule, and I'm not more like dedicated to like making things more fine-tuned. Because a lot of times I was saying that's where the fun comes, where me and Jen sit here and we just bullshit on a comic and we just
I think that's what I mean about not taking it seriously. Like the actual production of it and getting it out and doing all that, yeah, that's being taken seriously.
Yeah,
but, like, I mean, when you're doing this right now, when we're sitting in front of the mic, like we're not here being like, oh shit, I can't say that necessarily, or I can't do that, or I don't want that on.
No, you're right. Yeah.
You know,
No, we go over. Yeah, me and Jen are doing this. Like, we just bullshit, and we just try to crack each other up. And that's the thing. I mean, obviously, we're married, so the thing, the relationship is easy for us to just, we've known each other for so long, so we can have a rapport on the microphone.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's actually a rare thing where people actually get together on a microphone that are like related, people that are like dating or related to each other, and I feel like it doesn't always work like it's supposed to. Thankfully for me and Jen, it does. At least I hope so. I mean, I don't know. I'm saying this, but I don't know if the listeners will be like, no, you guys suck. I mean, you can tell us.
You guys have been doing this for what, like 5 years now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, let's see, 2014, so 2019. Yeah, I think it's for almost 5 years. That's a long time to do a podcast. Goddamn.
I mean, I figure if people weren't listening enough, you would have stopped doing it by then.
Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, I am appreciative of the audience. I wish that more. I always stress people to tell their friends about it, and if you're new to the show, and maybe you are, I don't know. I mean, we don't get a ton of press because there's a lot of podcasts out there.
Yeah, but you guys just got the Denver media rub.
That was unexpected. That was unexpected. I do appreciate that. I did email that guy too, and he was cool about it. Sometimes I wonder, like, how do people find out about this show? How do people find out about your show? Because I mean, podcast discovery is a fucking dick dance.
Honestly, the only way people find out about our show is if they go into the bathrooms and some of the bars and stuff and see a sticker and they're like, "Fuck that sticker."
That's the way to do it. That's a way to see something and you go, "Oh, that might be interesting," and you check it out.
That's the one thing that I've noticed is for me personally, in the scene back home and doing a craft beer podcast, it's tougher because it's a niche podcast. I mean, yeah, so is comic books too, but comic books are cool right now.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like people enjoy that stuff, and yeah, craft beer I guess is cool too, but when you're talking mostly local stuff, like you have to like focus on the local scene to actually like talk about you. Mm. And, I know for a fact that people locally, like, yeah, they do listen, but at the same time where they don't really give a shit, which is fine because whatever, Well,
that's how it is a lot of podcasts too. I think way that people listen to a show and you just kind of move on with it and you don't really like there's certain shows that like for instance, like We Hate Movies. Mm-hmm. I've been a big that's a show where I just like listen to it and I'm really excited to listen to it, and Jen's really excited to listen to it. Like we were just big fans of it.
Yeah, I listen too. I mean,
yeah, you listen too. I mean, we're just
it's one of those things where it's like if you miss it, it's fine, but then you go back and you're like, I'm glad I caught myself up on the stuff that you missed.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of shows like that. There's like Zach Ryder's podcast, the Toy Podcast. Like, I mean, there's some stuff like that, but there's also, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, how did this get made? Like, it's a good show, but they're doing an episode. At least in my particular case, like I'm like, okay, well, just wait for the next week. It's not like I'm going out there talking about it and stuff.
It's something, and maybe this week's episode is something that it's like, I'm not really that interested in, so I'm not going to listen to it.
Oh, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, I can go on about this stuff, but like trying to catch up on podcasts, trying to keep up on this stuff too is very difficult.
There's so many of them out there.
Well, not so many of them, but there's so much like stuff where you're like, okay, like, and especially for somebody like me who actually works in the industry, that's what I do. And like, I want to be able to, like, when somebody comes to me and says, hey man, would love to work on a podcast with you or work on, what do you think about this? And I want to be able to like say something to them about like, well, what's currently big right now, or what form, what, where can you listen to shows? Why are certain things more impactful in the industry than others? Because, for instance, like the WWE started a podcast network and they're taking a slow roll out. And a lot of times you would think that a place like WWE would already have like a dedicated podcast network, like would have had that back when like the serial shit hit. But they decided 2019 was the time to wait. And I think that's smart, because not everybody knows if this shit's going to actually fly, and maybe it doesn't. I mean, this shit can go away. I don't know. I'm just all over the place on this stuff. This is all I fucking do. This is all I do. And anytime people like, I always talk about this shit and I drive Jen crazy with it. and I'm probably driving you listeners crazy with it because it's almost just like, well, why I need to think hypothetical situations, blah 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 blah. But
no, that's the thing. It really is a business that there's a lot more going on to it than just, oh, hey, I'm just going to record this shit and throw it on the internet for someone to listen to.
Well, I mean, and that's the beauty of it is anybody could do it, but that's also the drawback of it is that anybody could do it. I always say that. I think that's the truth that nobody likes to really admit is that maybe you can do a podcast, but you don't always have to do a podcast, but it's the same way with TV, same way with movies, where it's like, you don't have to make these things, but you do. And
look at fucking YouTube, man. People jumped on YouTube so quickly to try to monetize themselves off of it. And just like now, like, you have people that's like, what the fuck are you even talking about, that are making millions of dollars just because they get people clicking on their fucking videos.
I don't even know. I can't. That's another one thing that I'm like so out of, like, the social media shit. No, it's like it's starting to get to the point now where you start seeing people that are like big in those things and you're just like, I don't know who those people are, but everybody expects you to know them now. And I just...
Yeah, fucking Twitch fucking celebrities. Like, what the fuck is Twitch even?
I mean, I know what it is.
That's what I mean. But ultimately, it's just fucking a channel for people to watch other people do things that they would be interested in doing.
And look at things. I'll watch like James Rolfe, like the video nerd.
Yeah.
AVGN. Like, I'll watch him and his cronies do that shit.
And that's what it is. That's literally what it is. It's like dudes like that. Just like...
But I like those people. I don't care so much that what they're doing is what I'm interested in what they're doing, but I also like those people. It'd be also another thing too, though, if like I'm trying to like watch like a video and I just don't like the person's voice or don't. It's the same thing with podcasting, and so I can relate. But I guess we should get off this big meaty pulpit of podcast proselytizing.
Yeah, this random rant about podcasting.
This is what happens when Jen's not here, is that I'm just unloading.
She can't reel it all in.
Usually because we have other things to talk about. We have other things to talk about as far as podcasting and or like comic books and stuff like that, which that's what the show's about. But sometimes we don't get to, sometimes I just go off. But nonetheless, I guess we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with our book for this week.
Hi, this is Batman. Whenever I lose my memory, I head over to the BatmanUniverse.net and check out the podcast, Bat Books for Beginners. The Bat Books for Beginners podcast breaks down and analyzes all of my adventures so I can remember how to get to the Batcave, which Robin I'm working with, and where I park the Batmobile. Chris and Jerry, the hosts of Bat Books for Beginners, are honest about how well I'm serving the citizens of Gotham. Sometimes too honest. I'll have to talk to them about that. If you wake up one morning and think you might be Batman and have just lost your memories, go over to the BatmanUniverse.net or iTunes and check out Bat Books for Beginners. Now, if I could just figure out who this old man cleaning the Batcave is, that would be great. I asked my friend Scott Snyder and he didn't know. Don't be a supervillain. Visit the BatmanUniverse.net and listen to Bat Books for Beginners, also on iTunes. You'll be glad you did. Bat Books for Beginners is part of the BatmanUniverse.net Bat family of podcasts. Don't listen to Bat Books for Beginners when operating heavy machinery or juggling. If you listen to Bat Books for Beginners for more than 4 hours, call your doctor. Bat Books for Beginners is part of a balanced diet.
All right, we're back here in Worst Collection Ever with our book for this week. We're doing The Flash, number 254 from October 1977. I figured we would do a 70s, 80s book. These are always like the easiest ones for us to do.
Just because they're so ridiculously written.
Yeah, and you could usually just tell by the cover, where you're just like, oh, okay, this looks silly. Let's beat this up. That's always sometimes the thing that we always run into is, we're trying to figure out like what should we do, and then you see a book and you're like, okay, that's gonna be a fun one to do, and either it's too depressing or it's too boring, and that's something that's a risk you run.
Well, the good thing about the 70s ones too is usually the cover actually happens in the comic. right? Like
Not all the time, but most of the time.
like when you got into like the 90s and stuff a little bit, like the covers is just like, I'm going to draw something completely cool or ridiculous and stuff like that might not have anything to do with anything that's going on in this issue.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. The '90s were notorious for that. But this one works out pretty good. This one's actually pretty accurate. So it's the Flash, and on the cover we have him running into what is known as the convention of Flash villains, because as many readers of the Flash are aware, he's got a very robust rogues gallery, like that are actually like friends. Like that's something that's always. I mean, it's not that it's not strange that there's, rogues galleries that are like tight, but
Well, with every other like DC superhero, like yeah, they have their own set villains as well, but like these villains didn't always really hang out. Like Batman ones hung out with each other because they kind of had to sometimes.
yeah,
But they didn't do it by like choice. Like these guys are just like grabbing dinner together and like meeting up for coffee. And,
Well, like shit, one of them died, and they're like, "Oh man, we got to name an award after him." It's like you don't think like the fucking Joker's not naming an award after, KG Beast or whoever it is. Like,
they don't give a shit about each other. Like Superman villains too.
Well, Superman villains don't. Yeah, Superman villains are just usually they're just big aliens.
Yeah,
or
they all hate each other.
Lex Luthor doesn't like anybody.
Yeah. Like Flash dudes, like I kind of want to be a Flash villain. I want to get into this group. I think.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I mean, even in Marvel, like, like X-Men villains don't hang out. I mean, depending on who you're. Well, I mean, you have your Brotherhoods of Evil Mutants. You have the Masters of Evil, but I feel like the Masters of Evil is just like, okay, we're here strictly to do evil. Like these guys are like, we're doing evil, but we're also like planning other shit.
Yeah,
and we're like,
I mean, I guess you had like the Sinister Six, which again,
same thing though.
They didn't like choose to hang out with each other. They felt like they needed to like succeed.
But here we are on the cover, and this says Convention of Flash Villains, and Flash is running in. He's astounded, and we have Pied Piper's like, "Congratulations, Flash! You win the award as our favorite hero." And he's holding up this award with a lightning bolt on it. And then you got Captain Cold thinking, "Oh, wait till you see what we give you next." He's got a gun behind his back, and we've, of course, the rogues. We've got Pied Piper, Trickster, Mirror Master, Captain Cold, and Weather Wizard. We're missing Heatwave, and I guess that's how. I don't know where he is. He should be there.
He had he probably had a family emergency.
Maybe
he let them know. He's like, "Sorry guys, I can't make it this year."
Maybe he cooked dinner or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe he was trying something else out. Maybe he was hanging out with Superman villains or something.
He's like, "Sorry guys, the wife won't let me out to come to the convention this year."
Sorry. So yeah, we start off though with on the opening cover, or in the opening page. It's title of the book is "To Believe or Not to Believe," and we see the Flash doing a ring around a Rosie with Hawkman and Aquaman.
Which actually kind of makes complete sense.
Which ends up making sense, and you wouldn't think it does, but it does. And then we see Pied Piper giving Flash this award, and then also Flash in a field, just kneeling down like it's like he's in
he's like sobbing.
Shawshank Condemned, whatever. You get it. You get it. Anyways, so we start off here. The Flash is apparently some kid went out on the ledge to get their cat. They got stuck on the ledge because people are like cutting promos on this poor kid. There's like, yeah, if she didn't look down, she would be okay. It's like, well,
I like how in one of the panel where like the Flash is up there, he starts getting there, and like the cat jumps out of the kid's arms.
Yeah,
and like the kid decides to jump after the cat.
I don't know about that. I feel like the kid maybe lost her balance. But I did think that too.
But the way the panel looks, it's like this kid's just like, oh, I can't lose my cat, so I'm gonna jump off this building. It's
if she's gonna smear, I'm gonna smear. So she flies. So she's fallen down, and the Flash does a tornado of sorts to brings her back up to the mother. And on his way up, he sees Mirror Master just hanging out in an apartment, and he's like, "What the fuck? What are you doing here?" But
if I was a villain, I would just kind of stand in my window in my costume too, just like staring at people to see if they notice.
Yeah, right. And then so Flash's solution is to like go back into that apartment and just do a tornado, like a super suction thing, like a vortex of sorts, to just empty this apartment. And it turns out it's just some dude. Well, some dude seems to be well asleep at 1:45 p.m.
It's just funny that, like, you know, Flash is just like, oh, I'm going to pull everything out of this apartment, and pulls the full bed out. The guy's still completely covered. Like, nothing's like, you know, it's not like the guy's off the bed.
Yeah, it's not like he's... if you see it was a suction thing, you'd think that, like, the covers would come off or, like, whatever.
None of that's happening.
Yeah.
But I guess the Flash knows how to do those kind of things and not disturb stuff.
Barry's a pro.
Yeah.
So, and then on the way down, after he's like, okay, well, I fucked that up. I'm going to go...
Yeah. So he pushes the dude back in.
Yeah. He goes down the street. He sees Mirror Master hanging out. Apparently now he's on the street, and Mirror Master's like, okay, well, I'm gonna float over into this windmill, and Flash is gonna follow me because, you know, Flash is kind of like, what the fuck? You know, you were in this apartment and now you're not. So Flash goes into this windmill, and that's where we see the Rogues having their Rogues Gallery Convention 77, which does tell us that apparently looks like at least it would have been a year. So 2 years, I think 2 years prior to this, in issue number 231, he encountered the Flash Con of villains.
The first one that happened.
Yeah, he got, you know.
So this is an annual thing. I wonder if they still do this in comics, or did they get rid of it after Crisis?
Crisis took care of everything.
Did Crisis ruin the friendship that the Flash Rogues had? Because that would be kind of a shame.
It is. I think it is. I think they just forgot about each other. It was like basically what happened was, it was like the end of Stand By Me, and Richard Dreyfuss is Captain Cold, and he's just writing about how, like, Trickster got his neck cut, his neck sliced open in a Hardee's or whatever fucking happens at the end of the movie.
Trickster's like sitting on a Hardee's, just being like, "This is my life now." It's a shame that Crisis had to ruin everything, huh?
Captain Cold got a leech on its dick.
All because they saw a dead body.
Because they saw the Top's body. The Top was dead. And they're like, let's go see Top. Make sure Keith Sutherland doesn't show up. He might kill me in the Hardee's later. I'm remembering Stand By Me wrong. Or maybe I'm not. I don't know.
It sounds about right to me.
I think I'm good. I think I got the movie synopsis down. So anyway, so they're in there, and the villains are like, "Hey, free, you know, hooray for the Flash! He's our greatest foe." You know, kind of like how we see in the cover here. And he's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna like."
He's like, "This is fucking weird."
First, he's weird, but also they're not like doing any crime, but he's like, "I'm gonna fuck them up."
Yeah.
Before he gets to do that, though, like, Captain Cold, like, throws some dry ice on the floor. He's like, "All right, this is gonna, you know, this is gonna mess you up. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna give you this award."
It's dry ice with poison too, because I don't think just regular dry ice will mess with the Flash.
Yeah, it's true. Well, he does. Yeah, he's very specific. He's like, "Man, I got some new dry ice. Check this out." And he throws it on the floor. And then Pied Piper's like, "Here's the Roscoe Award in recognition of Roscoe Dillon, the only Flash foe to die." He is the only one to die, which, you know, if we know comics, that doesn't always stick. Maybe, I don't know, is he still dead? I don't know.
You're the expert on that.
I didn't bother to look. Because as we do with the show,
your DC Who's Who or whatever, see if he's in there.
It's all stuck in the boxes. That's a pain in the ass. I don't know. I know that it's easy to look it up. I could usually look for my phone, but that's the thing. I don't want to. Sometimes with this show, I don't like to.
I like to believe he's still dead.
I want to believe he's dead, and they saw him, and they all called in an anonymous tip for the police to get him. And
maybe he got brought back in the New 52.
Yeah. Well, again, Crisis ruined it. Crisis ruined this Stephen King novella ending of the Rogues Gallery. So somehow the Flash is like, he's holding this award, and he uses the like his molecules to like vibrate so that he can basically like get himself loose, and he annihilates this windmill.
Because why should his villains have any fun?
True, but you know, they should have planned for this. They should have had it in a better like.
Having it in an abandoned windmill is kind of a weird place.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like you have to go off of a beaten road and the beaten path, and you have to find.
Do you think they tried to like call up a couple Legion posts and they're like, no, we can't rent to you?
Yeah, Legion posts were not down. They should have called their buddy Mad Dog. He could have hosted their convention in the woods, like the Juggalos.
He could have had it in North Tonawanda.
They could have did it at the Gathering. At the Gathering of Juggalos, also featuring the Rogues Gallery of the Flash Rogues Gallery.
What if the Rogues Gallery convention was the origin of the Gathering?
Oh man, I know one of our listeners, Nick, is a big ICP fan, so maybe maybe this might be something to think about, because I would like to believe this is canon.
Yeah,
but again, Crisis ruined it.
Yeah,
so. You know what? Forget we ever said it. It didn't happen. The ICP, the Gathering
ICP could have been a thing if Crisis didn't happen. It could have been happening in the 80s.
Oh, man. That'd be some hot shit.
New Wave ICP.
New Wave ICP. Touring with Jefferson Starship or whatever. Anyway, so Flash blows up this windmill, and he goes back home, and he's like, all right, well, Iris ain't home. I'm going to make her dinner. And then he realizes that apparently they have, like, some gal, this girl Stacy, that like stays with them.
If you're trying to hide your secret identity and stuff like that, why are you having a student stay with you?
I wouldn't have anybody staying with me.
That's what I mean. Like, come on. Like, you're just asking for yourself to get into trouble.
I can't remember if Iris knows about this or not.
It's hard to if she knows he's a Flash.
Yeah, it's always I always forget, because I feel like she's one of the ones that like knew. It wasn't like a Lois thing. It was like.
You're just asking for someone else to find out about you. Then, like, you're putting yourself in danger. You're putting that person in danger. Like, it's a dumb move, Barry. And especially if Iris doesn't know you're the Flash yet, then you have two people wondering, it's like, oh, what the hell just happened to Barry? Or why is he being weird? Or why is he doing this? And that kind of like comes up in here. That's why it's like, I wonder if Iris knows at this point.
She might. Barry's like, oh, so and so's here. That's interesting. I didn't realize she would be here, but I guess she's here. And he walks by her room, and he thinks she's singing a disco hit because he just hears her talking in tongues. And then he opens the door, and there's a bunch of like it's like the fucking like poltergeist or some shit going on in there. She's sitting there. Actually, this chick is sitting here with a honest to goodness wizard's dunce cap on her head.
Yeah,
she went
pretty ridiculous.
Like she went to Party City and was like, I am committing to this. I'm wearing this stupid fucking hat.
I'm doing black magic. I need something to show that I'm doing black magic. Oh, that hat will do.
Yeah, that hat. That's all they have. They don't have the crown of bloody thorns for me to wear, so I guess I'll wear this dunce cap. And she's just sitting there calling up a bunch of demons. Barry kind of no-sells the demons a little bit. Like he's like, holy shit, those are demons, but he's not just like.
What does he say? He calls them like he calls them something.
He walks in and he's like, oh, she's practicing black magic, and she's even conjured up some frightening demons.
Yeah, so he does call them frightening, but like he just kind of like closes the door and then walks away.
This is kind of where everything kind of goes like kind of weird for me reading this book.
Yeah, the plot of this issue like kind of falls apart.
So this girl. She shows up. He shows up and he's like, "Oh, Iris is in the kitchen." He talks to Iris, and then he looks on the TV and he sees the scene from earlier where the kid's falling off the roof with the cat, and the firemen saved the cat and the kid, but it wasn't Flash. And Flash is like, "No, I saved them," and everybody's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And then Barry, all of a sudden, I think he just disappears.
Well,
is that what we're supposed to believe here?
In this, like, in his mind. So if you fast forward like a page or two, like you find that like what really happens, right?
Okay.
Because like it's like, this M. Night Shyamalan plot twist now, you know.
Basically what happens is he falls through the earth and he ends up in like an underground cavern, and he runs into this guy named Mazdan, who apparently was a villain that he encountered all the way back in Showcase number 4, for Christ's sakes. And he's like, hey, you were like some futuristic scientist that like was trying to like fuck with our timeline, and I stopped you. And the guy's like, yeah, you did. You stuck me in the bottom of the earth, you fuck. And he's like, well, I'm going to continue to do that.
Yeah, we get a whole bunch of panels of like the Flash beating the shit out of this guy, and then it all of a sudden goes to this guy. Like while this is happening, this guy's explaining what he's doing.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, this isn't even happening right now. You're still standing in your kitchen."
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden you cut back to him like just frozen in the kitchen, thinking that this is going on.
Right. Yeah, and then he sees this award on the counter, and he's like, "How long's that been there?" And Iris is like, "I don't see anything," you know, and so he's he's losing it, you know, because he imagined all this stuff at the Rose Convention and with this Mazdan guy and the award, and it just kind of, he's going all over the place. And then he gets a signal from the JLA, and he's like, well, this will be good, maybe like somebody's, maybe like, Mazo's fucking stomping on somebody, so maybe I'll go and do that, and maybe this will help me clear my mind. And on the way there, this is it even confuses me more, because I'm like, is he hallucinating Trickster here or no?
Well, from what we find out at the end of this issue, he's not hallucinating that or the award, right?
Well, he had to be hallucinating the award because he couldn't, because nobody else could see it.
Because Mirror Master says that he put a thing over it so that Flash is the only one that can see it. So they are actually being the villains in this, but so is this Mazdan guy.
Wait, so I thought Mazdan didn't exist.
Well, no, he does. He's like messing with Flash still. Like that's the thing, because
so not only is he messing with Flash,
so like this JOA thing isn't really happening.
Right.
The Trickster thing's happening. So he goes and grabs Trickster. And then,
well, this is the thing. Okay, first of all, Trickster's just in the middle of the woods with a shovel, and the Flash is like, "Oh, maybe he's burying some loot." And it's like, I don't know about that. Maybe he's burying a body. He is one of your villains. Maybe he's burying the top. He's like, I finally got to bury him. Can't let any.
We've been staring at this body long enough.
Fat Jerry O'Connell. Hopefully, Fat Jerry O'Connell won't see him. So he's buried. But he's just standing there with a shovel, and then all of a sudden the shovel turns into a rocket, and the Flash is like, "Well, I'm gonna like stop the Trickster." And then as he's running with the Trickster, he runs into Aquaman and Hawkman, and this is where they start doing their little ring around the rosy. And then all of a sudden, Aquaman turns into a big fish, and this is where we get him in the middle of the field, and he's losing his goddamn mind, and it's actually pretty sad.
And that's why this Mazdan guy exists right now, because then like it goes into the next couple of like panels or Trickster explaining to somebody,
Captain Cold,
that like, yeah, he grabbed me. He was talking to nobody, and he just started crying in the field. So I just got out of there. It's like, I didn't want to be a part of this. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like pat him on the shoulder or something? Like he's just like, I can't
call social services.
Like,
you gotta call the state to help with them. That's how they help Joker in the movie. He goes, he's getting state aid. I think the Flash could use some state aid.
And Trickster's still kind of pissed. He's like, yeah, we were having our party and he ruined it. And now all of a sudden,
I thought the party wasn't real.
See, and that's where it's like, because the award was real. The party turns out to be real.
Well, that's right. The party turned out to be real because Mirror Master was like, yeah, I gave him this gimmick award that only he can see, and then I also threw us into a mirror somehow and make us disappear.
Yeah.
Whatever. And okay. Yeah, this makes sense.
So like they had this plan, and it just happens that they're doing this at the same time as this Mazdan guy's trying to get his revenge. So Flash is like literally fighting like 6-7 people at once right now.
What a pile of dicks. That sucks. I feel bad for the Flash. Actually, I genuinely feel bad for the Flash in this. It makes me uncomfortable to know that he's just having this awful time, awful like they really like did him in, but not like with like physical stuff, like with like just screwing with his head.
See, so now I wonder if. So I mean, I guess we could finish this.
Well, that's basically how it ends, because basically they're like, because the rogues are like, I don't know what his problem is, but I gimmicked this award and he's all over the place, but now we got this other, we don't know what else is going on, and that's how this ends.
Yeah, so it's like it's obviously a to be continued. So if you need to know what happens, you do have to read the next issue. And I'd be curious to read the next issue on it.
Yeah. I don't know if I would. I feel
because like is this student that they have actually practicing black magic? Do we get any conclusion on that?
Oh, I should have looked her up.
Like,
does she become a witch of some sort?
Yeah, like is she anything of relevance, or is it just something random that this guy decided to like mess with them?
Do this Mazdan was like, hey, you know what? So you got this hot chick living with you. She's into devil shit. Then you thought that you saved a cat and you didn't.
Like, that's what I mean. Maybe this dude's like actually hanging out with the rogues. Maybe he like maybe when like they were at Starbucks, like all sitting around a table, he was standing in line and he was over listening. He's like, oh, you guys don't like the Flash? I don't like the Flash too. And maybe he's in on this,
Maybe they like him because he kind of looks like Lex Luthor, and they don't have a Lex Luthor in their group.
Yeah, when he showed up, I was like, that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, why is Lex Luthor doing something here? I was like, oh wait, it's not him. Okay,
no, it's some other jabroni. What happens to Mazdan? I have a lot of questions about this. I don't know if I want to find them out though. I don't know if I care as much.
Obviously, someone thought, whoever wrote this issue decided that, hey, it was time to bring this guy back into the fold.
Hell yeah, Carrie Bates.
Like. He was like looking at old issues and being like, "Hey, this guy seemed kind of interesting.
Who haven't we used in 20 years? Actually, that'd be my kind of shit,
But that's what a lot of like random writers used to do back in the day, though. Kind of try to bring some guys back. I feel like Kevin Smith did that with some Green Arrow guys,
probably
when like he was writing for them.
Yeah, that would make sense. We'll come, somebody like that's kind of my thing too, because like I'm such a sucker for like random dudes that are like especially when you're reading like the Marvel like whatever the fuck it is, the handbooks, and you just see like all these random people that you're just like, well, whatever happened to this guy, and you're just like, oh no, maybe bring him back.
Well, because why like introduce a brand new character and then just throw someone in there that's probably never going to be used again once you stop writing that series, So like bring back somebody else's work,
Yeah. Well, hey,
and like expand on that guy's, thing, because like if it's available to you, why not?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like how wrestling. You want to use all your. I always like seeing different stuff. That if it's new, it's new. But I also like bringing something old and making it new and making it relevant.
As long as it's done right.
If it's worth your time.
That's the question I think we're left with this issue.
Well, yeah.
Is this being done right?
I'm pretty certain whatever goes on in this is probably fixed up in the next issue, and it's probably not that satisfying. Because, again, Crisis ruined it. But
this is also the only time I've ever heard of this dude. So I'm assuming this guy probably doesn't exist anymore.
Maybe not, yeah. I'm sure this is all backed up. I mean, Barry, wasn't around after this for a while anyways. Or not after this book, but I mean, 10 years after this, he was, basically like...
Fucking Crisis.
Fuck you, Crisis. Anyways, that's it for this week's episode. That's it for the Flash number 254 from October 1977. Thank you for listening, folks. Brian, tell people where they can find you on social media and tell people about the show.
Yeah, you can go follow WhatTheHops on Twitter and Facebook at WhatTheHops, on Instagram at WhatTheHops Podcast. I do a lot of stuff with Instagram stories and all that stuff, trying to like get people involved with actually saying what we're doing and what we're drinking and all that fun stuff. You can find us on hop.network.com or bigheadsmedia.com, where we have our show at, and wherever, honestly, you get your podcast. So go find that and, hit us up.
Yeah, definitely do that. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Angry Hero Shawn. And you can find Jen on Instagram and Twitter at Jen Stansfield. And look for her on WordPress. She is doing X-Files reviews, so you should support that as well. Yeah, please rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you get the show. Find us also on Facebook, and also email the show at worstcollectionever@gmail.com. Thank you again, Brian, for joining us, and that's it for this week's show. And we'll catch you again next time. And just imagine Jen saying bye.